10 reasons why you should adopt Kotlin within your Android app. Number 1 is boilerplate code. So when you convert Java into Kotlin, it automatically shaves off 5 lines of code pretty much if you have 100 lines. That may not seem a lot, but you can actually do more. You can chop off another maybe 10 or 15, and instead of having 100 lines, you'll have 80. It'll look better too. It will be a lot easier to read. Second is extensions. With Kotlin, with extensions, you could have custom methods for classes that you don't control, such as the iterator for lists. You can create a average function, which pretty much takes the average of all the objects within your list and averages a certain method, such as a person's age within a list of people, which is 2 or 3 lines of code. Next is the ability to not name your variables with types, so you don't have to put in string or double. That's optional with Kotlin, so you can have mutable and immutable variables, and that just makes things a lot easier. Next is direct referencing to your XML views with the ID. No more find view by ID and taking up an extra line of code. All you have to do is reference the ID, but make sure you name your ID what it is and not just a random name, because you need to figure out what that name means. So if you have a list view or a recycler view of people, put in list of people view or list of people recycler view so you know what it is. Next is Anko layouts. They're programmable, so you can create your layouts without XML. You can create them within Kotlin, within your file. You would do this just for ease of use, and well, it's different. It's not going to be easy at the beginning. It's different, and it's also a little faster, a lot faster than XML. And then we have the sixth one, which is coroutines, which is experimental, but it works great. So coroutines is a way to pretty much make threads for your APIs without doing a callback. So for example, if you have retrofit and you know that you have to put it in a enqueue, and then you get this callback with a anonymous class, you don't have to do that with coroutines. You just have 2 or 3 lines of code, or 3 or 4 actually, and you do coroutines. You don't have to do a callback. It's much more natural. You can call to the UI thread immediately right after. You don't have to start up another thread or anything like that. It's a lot easier than doing callbacks, and then you have the callback hell, which you have callback within a callback within a callback, which is bad practice, but it happens sometimes, and coroutines actually fixes that to a great extent. Next is Null Safety, which is the main reason why I went to Kotlin in the first place. And what Null Safety is the ability to reduce the amount of times you have null pointer exceptions. You wouldn't believe how many times I shipped an app, and a few months later there is a null pointer exception because something changes with the RESTful API, or some user finds a bug and it's a null pointer exception, and it completely crashes the app. It doesn't give any forgiveness, it just crashes the entire app. Well, Kotlin has Null Safety that it checks for nulls, and if it's a null, it returns it as null, and it doesn't run that method, or it doesn't apply that variable. And how that helps is it doesn't destroy your app, it just doesn't do that functionality that you would have hoped. That also gets rid of null pointer exception checks, so you don't have to do blank does not equal null or blank equals null. There's no more of that. You will have to do that maybe once or twice or 3 times in one entire app, maybe even more, but that's a lot less than the 20 times that you have to do it within Android that stuff equals null. Next is data classes. So to create a POJO within Java, you have to create the variable, and then you have to create the getter and the setter. You have to create a constructor and everything. With data classes, you just create the constructor, and it creates all your getters and setters and your variables for you, and you're all done. And that's in one line of code, 2 lines of code. The data class, completely easy. You can create 10 data classes in one file within minutes, and that would take maybe half an hour with Java trying to code all of that. Makes it a whole lot easier. I use data classes all the time. And next is lambdas. So with Android, it's stuck in Java 6. I think it's at Java 8 now, and they use lambdas. But with Kotlin, it has so much lambda support. The lambdas are great. They're very easy to use. They're very natural to use, really. If you know the basics of lambdas, you'll know exactly how they work. Very easy to read, and they're just really great for Kotlin. Number 10 is delegates. If you don't know what delegates are, they are pretty much additions to variables. So for example, lazy, you can have a variable, set it to null now. So for example, if you have a object and it needs your context, or it needs a view, you have to set it for null first, and then in the onCreate you have to set the constructor and actually create the object with those dependencies, such as the context and the view, because those aren't created yet. They're created in onCreate. But with lazy, the delegate, you just put lazy behind by lazy at the end, and put in the constructor, such as context and your view. It will set it to null now. And then once you use it first, it'll create the object. So you don't have to create the object at all. It'll do it for you. It's a lot easier. I use that all the time for my presenters and my interactors. And I use that with pretty much every activity and every fragment. I use that a lot. There are ones like observable. So every single time you call the setter, you can customize the setting with it, so you can print to the screen. For example, every time you set to it, you can put in a certain function into it without creating a setter, and it's all in one place, all in one code in the same place of your variable, so you don't get lost. You're trying to find. So the observable is part of the variable. The global scope of the variable. With that, it makes it a lot easier because you don't have to create a setter within that class. So it's all together. You don't have to create a setter, and then the variable's over here, and the setter's all the way down here. You have to look all the way down there. You can just have it in the same place with the observable, with the delegate. Those are the top 10 different ways you would want to put within Android Kotlin.